Hey everyone. So my name is Ashank, and I work as a mobile developer at Nuclei. Would like to thank droidCon for giving us this opportunity, to share our work. And joining with me is Natesh and Bhat. He's
Hi.
also yeah. So he is also my colleague at Nuclei. Natesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Natesh Bhat, mobile developer at Nuclei. I'm also known as a friendly developer on YouTube. So if you want, you can check me out. And also, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and do check out my GitHub. Thanks.
Yeah. So, guys, you can take a note of these social handles. So maybe you want to connect with us later for any questions or to know our work more. So today we'll be talking on the flexible Flutter. As you can see, multi-modularization and seamless integration with native Android, iOS, and web. So before that, just give you a gist of the workplace we work in. So Nuclei is a company which empowers banks to enable merchant marketplace on their digital banking platforms. So we have many categories built independently as modules like recharge, bill payments, hotels, flights, bus. So Nuclei started off in late 2018. Gradually, we collaborated and integrated with around 16 banks across Asia, including Middle East and Southeast Asia as well. And we have around 3 million transactions per month. Also, a merchant ecosystem of 40 plus partnerships globally. So, with partners, I mean, uh, we have categories which would many third party APIs. So for that we need partners, right? So that's what. And then we would like to thank all our clients. So these are the banks we have signed off till now, and these are mostly banks from India. And we have recently started working with a bank in Middle East called Rak Bank. It's a bank in Dubai and a bank in Singapore as well. It's DBS Bank. So, yeah, lastly, we would like to thank MasterCard as one of the global partners who, you know, uh, gave us, who recognized us in MasterCard Start Part 2019 and gave us a global exposure. So, yeah, so finally, before starting off, I'll just give you an overview. So, firstly, we'll be saying hello to Nuclei SDK, and then we'll be discussing the challenges that we face with our native code base, then how Flutter helped us, and then how we migrated into Flutter, what were the problems with migration and some solutions on it. And lately, Natesh will be talking on Flutter Web and its wonders. You can't leave it because it's a bonus. And finally, the milestones. So yeah, Nuclei SDK has basically it's built on two platforms, Android and iOS. So we have various categories built. So we have a core category which has core services and screens like checkout screen, order details, wallet, coupon. So we won't want them to build them like again and again, right? So it's a common module. And then we have other modules like flights, hotels, recharge. So these are independent modules. Then suppose a bank comes and say, hey, I want to integrate with you. So what we do is we just give give the bank our core module, and any suppose the bank asks that I want a flight module or a hotel module. So we just give them those modules independently along with core module, and they are good to go. So it's like a plug and play kind of thing. So we have hosted our modules or categories on Maven Artifactory. So it's quite easy on a Gradle platform. So you just integrate it as a dependency. So what are the challenges with legacy code base? So as I told earlier, we have two platforms, iOS and Android. So obviously you will need 2x resources, right, in order to build it. Then we had more development time. As you know, in Android, build time is like a lot more. So every time you want to test the app, you have to build it again and again, right? And then obviously more testing time, less delivery speed because development time is more. And then we had some already built core components in the core module which we didn't want to build again. Suppose I want to shift on a hybrid cross platform, and I'm not able to use my already built core components, then that's overhead again. So we were afraid that if we move to any cross platform, then this can be an overhead of time and resources as well. Then more code, obviously. So we have two code bases, and so maintaining two code bases is tougher than maintaining one code base. So partner banks tech stack is also, we don't know, right? They may use hybrid platform, they may use native platform. So we were also worried that if we use any other platform for our SDK, whether it will be compatible with partners' native platform or hybrid platform or not. Then we use gRPC as a service on Nuclei SDK. So we also were worried about gRPC support if we go for any alternative technology. Then after coming across these challenges, we started exploring, and finally we landed onto Flutter. And just about Flutter is a cross-platform solution which like if you write code, you write code in Dart and on a single code base. That single code base can be built into Android, iOS, and web. So uh, it's in simple terms, that's Flutter for you. How Flutter helped? Obviously, the opposite of previous challenges that you saw. Less resources, as it has only one code base. Less development time because Flutter has uh, a hot reload feature. Like you just press Control S or Command S, and you see the screens rendering on your phone, rather than building the grid again and again and testing it. Then obviously less testing time, as you have one code base to maintain. High delivery speed. Basic gRPC support was also there, and exponentially less build time because Flutter builds very fast. Ability to use native core components and libraries. So Flutter comes up with native dependencies or as well. So you can communicate with native using platform channels, and you can use native core components and services or screens as well. So we'll be seeing how we do that. And obviously if you have one code base, you have you can you'll have less code. And also Dart is very lightweight when you write code. So it's a very interesting and human readable language. And yeah, Flutter has an add to app feature by which you can just uh, plug in Flutter into your already built app and you're good to go. So that was easy, isn't it? Flutter, we found Flutter and we were good to go. Really? Well, I don't think so. So um, actually, it was easy, but I mean, Flutter made it easy, but it didn't come as a well served dish to us. We had to do a lot of tweaking, and we faced a number of problems initially, but finally we solved all of them. So we'll be discussing few problems and their major solutions. And before that, we'll be discussing the Flutter code base, how it looks. So Flutter as of now doesn't have good support for multi-modules. So as I showed you in Nuclei SDK, we have dependent build modules, right? So we can't directly plug in a Flutter module to our Android SDK. So we have built an umbrella module for now, and we have a core module which has all Flutter core services and repositories that we are using under the hood, and we have our independently built categories. Suppose, like as of now, we have built 3 categories. One is bus bookings, gift card, and credit score. So if you see the file structure, you'll see this is an umbrella module, and these are all the categories that is enclosed by this. Now, how do you integrate it with the native? So this is your umbrella module. You just type a command flutter build AR, and it generates a Flutter AR file, Android archive file for you. What does it contain? It contains a Flutter activity. So basically, this activity is an entry point for uh, a native code to Flutter code. And then the Flutter embedding, which has platform channels. Platform channels are channels through which, or a bridge through which you can communicate between Flutter code and native Android code. And then a Flutter engine which takes care of all the system level things that are going on under the hood, and some plugins that are platform level dependencies. Okay, so suppose I have built a Flutter Android archive file. It will have Android related uh, the plugins will have Android related functionalities. If you build a framework in iOS, so it will have iOS related functionalities. So now it's very simple. As I showed you earlier, these are already built categories on Nuclei SDK. We just build one more module and add it as an R file here, and then we build separately bus credit score and gift card and other modules which are built on Flutter here. So these modules are not built again. It's just forming the entry points for uh, bus Flutter activity and credit score Flutter activity. So in this bus module, we'll create an entry point by extending this Flutter activity, and we just get access to this code here. Okay. So now you may have a question that if you had an umbrella module itself, why didn't you consider communicating with Flutter core itself? Why did you build new modules here? So on that, so as I told, currently Flutter doesn't support it, the multi-modularization. But in future, actually there is an open issue and they're still working on it. Maybe by end of the year they'll get that as well here. So now, yeah. So that's why. So we have built it for safer side. So once Flutter supports multi-modularization, we'll just plug the bus Flutter category and credit score Flutter category directly here, and we are good to go. So major problems with Flutter migration and solution. So first problem was to and fro navigation between Flutter and native screens. So as I told, when you launch a Flutter app from native, and suppose you opened some screens in Flutter, right? And now suppose there is a screen on native side that you would want to open, right? So you may need to send some signal from Flutter code to native in order to open the native screen, right? Already built native screen. Let's say some payment screen or some common order detail screen, right? So there were certain problems in it. So I'll just discuss that step by step. Suppose this is bank. As you can see, this is one of our bank clients app. Now we have integrated Nuclei SDK here, recharge bill payments. So let's take an example of this bus category. So when a user clicks on this bus category, a Flutter activity, a Nuclei Flutter activity is launched on native side. Now this Flutter activity uh, gets access to the Flutter engine that runs the Flutter code in a Flutter isolate, and it pushes a bus landing screen on it. Now, since I have built bus module separately, so I would want to open all the screens on Flutter itself, right? So in Flutter, I have written the code in such a way that after bus landing, when you click on proceed button, just go to some screens and finally you will land up to bus booking screen. Now, after landing to bus booking screen, you would want to create an order, right? For creating an order, we had a screen called Nuclei cart review activity. So that is already a part of our core module that was built on native. So we just send a signal on the platform channel that is built, that we have coded under the hood, and it goes to our native code and it just launches Nuclei cart review activity. So this comes, so if you see the Android navigation stack, this comes on the top of Nuclei Flutter activity, right? Now I want to do the payment. So for payment, generally bank uses their own payment scheme, so we direct it to the bank payment activity, right? Now bank payment activity gives us a control back, and we open Nuclei order details activity, which is again in native side core. Now, suppose from order details activity, I want to see the ticket, bus ticket. So there is a proceed CTA again, and that ticket screen is again built in Flutter. So I'll just open Flutter activity, and that Flutter activity triggers the Flutter engine code, and in Flutter side, I open bus ticket screen. So this is how it works. Now, where's the problem? So suppose when you click on app back press button, so this is your app back press button, right? So at the top left corner, you will have app back press. So when you click on that, so Flutter is configured, since that navigation toolbar is in Flutter, so Flutter listened to that navigation toolbar back button, and it popped. So you could see bus booking screen now. But instead, what did you want? You wanted that when you pop bus ticket screen, you should come back to order details screen, right? So this was the problem with app back button. What was the other problem? When you click on device back button, so device back button is the button here, right, in the bottom left. So that was listened by Android system code. So basically, that used to trigger this activity on back press, and this used to pop. Now you go back to order details activity. Everything is fine for now. Now after order details activity, when you press back, you would want to go back to landing screen, as payment screen and cart review screen you don't want to see, right? So you come back to Nuclei Flutter activity. But again, if you see in the Flutter engine, still the bus ticket screen is still there. So why did this happen? Because though we are opening Flutter activity multiple times, but the same isolate is running on the top of this activity. So this screen didn't pop in sync with our device backgrounds. So in order to solve this, we built a custom navigation stack on Flutter. So we have a Nuclei navigator class that that takes account of a stack, and this stack is a list is a this stack is a stack of navigator screen objects. So each navigator screen object wraps a screen. So screen has a route name, and we have created a Boolean variable called from native. So suppose this is the Flutter activity, right? Now I want to open a Flutter screen from Flutter activity. So this Flutter activity is the source of opening a screen route, right? So when this Flutter screen is open, for this from native will be true. Now when I open a screen on top of this screen in Flutter, since the source is Flutter, not native again, for this from native will be false. So similarly, we have stack of screens here. So now whenever we pop the screens, we'll check the from native flag. And if it's from native, we'll pop the Flutter screen also and the native activity also. So we'll just send a signal on platform channel to pop our native activity. Firstly, we'll pop the Flutter screen, and then we pop the native activity. So if you finally see the Flutter isolate, and if you're left out with some Nuclei, some Flutter activity, you'll just see the screens have been popped, and you'll see what you want. So that's how it helped it. So if you want to know more about it, you can just ask. You can just connect with us later. Then there was then it there comes Flutter with gRPC. So gRPC was also one of the concern, because our whole Nuclei SDK is built on gRPC, and so we don't use REST, we use gRPC, and we wanted a good support for it as well. So earlier it didn't have good support, but 6 months back, finally we came across some solutions for it, and we have compiled a blog on it as well. Maybe you would want to go to Medium on Nuclei Technology blog and just have a gist of it, and you're good to go with Flutter and gRPC. Yeah. So from now, like I like Natesh to speak on Flutter Web and just see how Flutter Web has done wonders for us and our business.
All right, guys, we started with two separate code bases, one for Android and iOS, and then we moved on to choosing Flutter for all the wonderful reasons Ashank has mentioned. But now, after that, we started exploring Flutter Web, and we also achieved a lot of things there for really strong reasons. Let's look at all of them one by one. Okay, regarding Flutter Web, what has helped us here most is we are able to release web application from the same code base, which we had, the Flutter code base, which worked for both iOS and Android. With just one single command, flutter build web, we are able to create a new web build, okay, which contains the normal index HTML and all the JavaScript. And in terms of business perspective and tech perspective, we can easily make it really helpful for user behavior analysis and kind of test all the scenarios and flows, and then convert it into native app without any change to the code. Okay. Also, another benefit here is that we can integrate our SDKs in banks' websites also, not just give it to their Android applications, but also their websites. Like many banks have their websites. So that is a great point. And another thing is, in terms of in technical perspective, many times any bug fixes or any improvements or features, either product changes, we may want to act on it as quickly as possible instead of having to spend all the extra development and QA cycles again and again. So this again helps us a lot. Also, the size of web application is really much less when compared to Android, because web app hardly it comes to size around 1 MB. It's always usually less than that as compared to Android, which has like 20 plus MB or so. And also there are like newer versions of Flutter support only Android X. So there are certain partners which are still using lower versions, legacy versions of Android. So Flutter Web helps us there also. Okay, because by using Flutter Web, we don't need to worry about all those things. And also we can release a entire new category without releasing a new SDK at all, because everything is dynamic. The whole web application resides in our server. Okay, when our user opens the app, it gets it from the server. So there is no need to release a new SDK. Okay, that is about Flutter Web and how it helps. And as it has so much benefit, it also comes with so many challenges which we had to solve. And we are really happy that we were able to solve these kind of challenges. We'll look at each of them one by one. Okay, one challenge, obviously, as Ashank and has mentioned before, we needed to have one single code base which works for iOS, Android, and also web without much changes to any code, without any change to the code, with just a single command. Okay, and also we faced certain challenges where some plugins or some libraries were not compatible with web. Okay, that is one of the challenge. And also since as Ashank told, since our whole backend architecture and our service architecture API call is using gRPC protocol, when we build a web application, the browser can only make gRPC web requests. gRPC web and gRPC are two different protocols, so that is yet another challenge. Okay, and since we have a web app right now, since by making a web app, we will be hosting it on our server. So app needs to be downloaded from server whenever user opens the app. Okay, that is another challenge. We don't want this at all. We don't want the user to wait. Okay, and also there were some performance limitations when we started exploring Flutter Web. It was not that smooth. The UX was not as good as native Android app. And also, since the whole Dart code is compiled into JavaScript, when we create a web app, error logging and debugging challenges were also there. Also, since as you saw, our business side is mostly about building more and more categories and integrating them. As we build more and more categories, we want to lazily load any category as and when needed on demand. We don't want the user to wait until all our categories are downloaded when he opens the application. Right, that is another challenge. And also, there are many times we want to embed our web app inside native web view. Let's say when we're giving it to bank applications, we want to embed it inside native web view. Okay, but sometimes web view and web browser, they do not have the same capabilities. So there are challenges there also. Okay. Now these are challenges, and obviously these challenges could not stop us. We solved most of them, and let's discuss some of them. Okay. Yeah, regarding that gRPC and gRPC web incompatibility, what we did is we introduced a gRPC web proxy. Okay, it's kind of a middleman server which handles translating between gRPC web requests, which comes from the web app, and the gRPC actual gRPC protocol. So it handles the translation between them. This makes all our previous API and service architecture easily we can make it work. Okay, that is the one thing. And also, as I told, to deal with plugin platform incompatibilities, let's say certain library doesn't support web, or certain library doesn't support Android. So these kind of incompatibilities we were able to solve it very beautifully through using a Dart's feature. It's called as conditional importing. So basically what that allows us to do is import any implementation at runtime depending on the platform we're using. Okay, so here let's say I wanted to get a gRPC connection, I want to make a gRPC call. Now on mobile phones, gRPC web client doesn't work. On web, the normal gRPC protocol doesn't work. Okay, so we at runtime we need a different implementation to get the certain correct implementation on that particular platform. Okay, with that conditional importing, this made it possible. Uh, all right, and then yet when dealing with these kinds of hybrid frameworks and doing all these kinds of stuff means we need to handle communication properly, and we need to figure out better ways on how to communicate properly. So here another challenge we faced was how to communicate from native Android to JavaScript, which is nothing but the web app, and how to communicate between Dart and JavaScript. Okay, this we were able to achieve this through JavaScript interface, which is provided by native web view, and also external keyword. We'll look at how look at the details of it. Okay, so basically when we create a web app, from web app, if I want to call certain methods on Android, okay, we can achieve that by using something called as JavaScript interface. Okay, you will get your web view reference, and you will add something as a JavaScript interface. You will give a name for that interface. So here JS interface I have given, and that interface will expose all the methods which can be called from your web app. Okay, when you actually load your web app in your web view. Okay, you can either load a HTML page or you can load a URL. Okay, that is about handling messages from web app inside web view. Now we also want to initiate communication from Dart to Android. Okay, why? Because when we are developing the application, our application will be in Dart code. Okay, we'll be writing the code in Flutter, which is in Dart. So when let's say when I click on show toast button, I want to send a message to Android saying I want to show a toast. Okay, but how do I communicate directly from Dart to Android? We cannot do that, because when we compile our Dart code to a web app, we'll be getting a JavaScript. Okay, we'll be getting JavaScript code. Only JavaScript can communicate with Android. Okay, through the JS interface that we saw before. All right. So for that, there is a clean way in Dart using external keyword. What we can do is we can map a function in Dart to a function on JavaScript. Okay, using @js annotation, we can just have an abstract method which maps onto a JavaScript function. So from Dart, whenever I click on this button, I call show toast, and this actually calls the corresponding map, the JavaScript function inside our JavaScript. We will have a method called to Android, native Android, saying JS interface dot show toast, because as we saw before, we can access all the methods, exposed methods, through the JS interface. Okay, we can call that using JS interface. We'll have access to that JS interface object from within web app, and we can call all those exposed methods. Here we can show. Okay, as you can see, this is the whole flow of communication when we are building a web app and want to embed it inside Android. All right, now one yet another very concerning thing for us was we don't want the user to, whenever he opens the app, we don't want him to download the app every time, right? Because once you make a web app, once you serve your web app, once you host it in your servers, what happens is every time user clicks on that, you need to download first, get the whole app from the server to your phone, as opposed to installing it from Google Play Store, where first it will download the app on device, and then user can open it whenever he wants. Okay, so that was another challenge for this. um, there is a concept in web application called service workers. So basically, Flutter has Flutter Web. When you create a Flutter Web build, it has support for PWA, okay, progressive web application, which you might have heard a lot these days. So whenever we make a request first time, that is whenever user opens the app, the request to fetch the app or fetch the web page goes through the service worker. Okay, the service worker handles certain responsibilities, things like caching the response and sending push notification to the device, or fetching resources user might need in future, background synchronization, any kind of network interception. Basically, you can when user requests for a HTML page, you can send back a PNG image of a cat, anything you can do. Okay, so what service worker does is it first fetches it from the server and then serves it to the user, and on subsequent requests, service worker would have cached the whole application. So, and the same cached web app will be passed back. Okay, so only first time there will be some waiting time. After that, there will be no waiting time. It's as good as just opening the app directly. Okay, also there is room for using service workers. There is room for updating your whole application. Whenever you update your application, a new service worker will be created at server, and it will handle the synchronization part automatically. Okay, and also there is room for customization. It's all in our control. Okay, that's about caching and service worker. Now, talking about performance improvements, as we saw earlier, one of the challenges was performance limitations. Earlier, what happened was when we created web builds, a few some time before, Flutter supported only DOM canvas. Okay, if people are familiar with web development, DOM canvas is gives us certain JavaScript APIs from which we can use to draw things like shapes, circles, and all these things. So Flutter was using that, but its performance was slow, and it was the animations were not as smooth, and like it was not a good UX as compared to a native app. Okay, but then as with time they implemented something called as Skia. Okay, Skia is a 2D graphics library. It is written in C++. It is very performant. It uses WebAssembly actually, which is a concept which makes web application extremely fast. Even Figma, the designing tool, uses WebAssembly. Okay, so these made our applications, the web apps, super smooth. All animations were also smooth, and the only limitation with Skia right now is it's still in experimental phase. Although it's very stable based on our testing, it's still in experimental phase, and we need to download some extra file at runtime from web app. that also they are improving with a new method. Okay, so that is about performance limitations. And also, as we saw with all these solutions, we're still exploring certain aspects, and there are still certain milestones that we are working on, that we will definitely be solving. Okay, some of them are improving testability, as you have a number of builds now, web, Android, iOS. You need to improve on the testing aspect. Also, embedding multiple Flutter modules, as Ashank specified, it's still limited, has limited support. Also, Android X, Flutter newer versions support only Android X, not the legacy versions. And we would want to, moving forward, we would want to dynamically lazy load categories at runtime, because all the categories once we develop, we don't want to send it to the user, so that it will take some time. Okay, and sometimes there were rare times when the UI between Flutter web and Android app was not as good as we wanted it to be. So that were some things, but that is almost resolved now. And the communication overhead that you saw there. Okay, so these are certain milestones, and with that we hope to answer some of the questions. And here you can see some of our major open source contributions for improving Flutter and all the packages and the blocks that we have written. Anyway, for more info on both the tech and the business aspects of it, you can visit our site gonuclei.com, or if you want, you can get more tech help from us, or tips from us, by contacting us on this email. Okay, let's look at some of the.
Yeah. So guys, if you like our work, maybe you can join us at gonuclei.com as well.
Yeah. How do you support syncing the network access token between native and Flutter network stack, and how to refresh it? Okay, see, actually we are using gRPC. gRPC is a protocol. It's a way in which we write a kind of a API contract, which is nothing but which is a file which contains all the messages and the services we'll be using. So by compiling that, we will get retrofit like classes. Okay, we'll get type safety with that. So there we have a way to specify any certificate. We can specify any network server configurations there. And also, as you saw before, gRPC, both gRPC and gRPC web libraries that we're using, all of them support here. And
also, if you're
yeah,
concerned about the bearer token or the token that you send for authentication and all, so from native, so in the native we have our user login credentials. So when the bank has their login screen, and that helps us to create credentials and create the bearer token, and then we can send that token with the platform channels to Flutter code. And that channel is quite secure, because the Flutter, when it compiles to R file, AR file, it's almost at machine level code. So it's quite hard to hinder that.
yeah.
And that token can be used to call services in Flutter as well.
All right. Any other questions? We'll be happy to answer. All right, guys. If you have any more questions, you can obviously connect us on the email link that we have shared. Also, in Talk, you have, I think there is an interface to ask any questions. So shoot at us whatever questions you have on about Flutter or Flutter Web or integration with native, whatever it is, we'll be happy to answer.
Like we know, like people are concerned about Flutter and worried about Flutter. So we have done a lot of work with it, and I think we are ready to answer your questions mostly on Flutter. So if you're thinking to move on Flutter and experiment few things, you can obviously connect with us. So earlier we were also concerned with it. Like now it has been almost 8 months that we have gone live with Flutter, and we have around 4 million plus of user base per month, and 3 million transactions per month. So that's quite evident that Flutter is working great for us in production as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Stay safe.
Yeah, been a nice experience. Yeah, bye.